Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 95th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Re'eh in the book of Deuteronomy, which speaks about the blessing and the curse. If we do what God wants, everything will be good. It'll be a blessing. If I don't do what God wants, it's going to be the curse. Unfortunately, so there's reward and punishment. As the Torah tells us, you're not allowed to go after false gods. And we're going to speak about that, going after false gods and uprooting them from the land. It also speaks about false prophets, and they're supposed to be destroyed, even if they do miracles. So maybe we'll touch on that. As well. So here, Parshas Re'eh, chapter 12. In chapter 12. It starts off by saying, these are the statutes and judgments which you shall observe to do in the land which the Lord God of your fathers gave you to possess it all the days you live upon the earth. Shall utterly destroy all the places which the nations whom you are to dispossess serve their gods upon the high mountains, upon the hills, under every leafy tree. Shall overthrow their altars, break their pillars, burn their Asherim, which was a god that they served. With fire you shall hew down the carvings of the gods, destroy the name of them of that place. That's beginning in chapter 12, verse 1 to verse 4. Now this sounds a little bit extreme, because what's supposed to happen when the Jewish people come into the land? When they come into the land of Israel, they have to uproot all the idols, all the altars. Right, they destroy everything. Right, break down their pillars, burn their asherim. Right, these certain type of idols that were underneath trees. With fire, hew down the carvings of their gods, destroy the name of them out of that place. Now, we know in the Ten Commandments there are commands not to serve idols, not to make idols. For a Jew, it's one of the three cardinal sins that you have to give up your life for, anytime, any place. So here, when they go into the land, right, they're giving the command to uproot everything in the land, right? Uproot all the idols, all the altars, and all that. So doesn't that sound, a little bit fanatical, like it's my way or the highway, so to speak? And therefore, even though we understand idolatry is a pretty serious thing, it's one of the three cardinal sins every Jew, has to give up their life for. Again, anytime, any place. Maybe we're no different than Islam. Maybe, people will say, oh, look at the Torah. It's so strong, against anyone who doesn't believe in it. And if you believe in idols or anything else, you're going to get wiped off the face of the map. Now, that's true and not true, right? It's mostly not true because, depending what a person does, let's say, except for idolatry or, the big three, idolatry, murder, or immorality, right? Any other mitzvah that a non-Jew, does, so to speak, we're not going to wipe them off the face of the map. Any non-Jew wants to have a part in Torah. They want to be a Noahide, right? They don't have any interest to convert because we're not looking for converts. If they want to stay as a Noahide, they're allowed to, right? We're not saying believe in us, you're going to fry in hell forever. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's a Christian idea, right? Or Muslims will say believe in us, if not, we'll kill you. Well, the book of, the Quran is an extremely violent book, no question. People say, well, the Torah is no different. Now, the Torah makes clear there are certain things that get God more upset, so to speak, and there's much more severe punishment. I mean, other things get him upset also. Just doesn't mean you're going to go and wipe these people out. Or whatever the case is. So, Judaism certainly believes you want to have a portion in it. We're not going to say, believe in us, you're going to fry in hell forever. Now, on the other hand, God gives a command, right? He gives a command over here when you go in the land to uproot all these things. It comes on the Rambam. So, Maimonides says this should be the same command in all the lands. In other words, this is so disgusting in God's eyes, idolatry, that it should be wiped out in every land. Now, there's an obvious problem. Even though, according to the Rambam, there should be that command in all the land, in all the land outside the land of Israel. What would happen if you would do it? Stick a bomb, missile, whatever, churches all over all over America, all over the world. What would that do? That'll put you in jail. Probably get you a death penalty, right? In some places, right? Depending on what you did. So obviously you can't do it. But the Rambam says you should, if you have the ability to do it, you should. Well, that's an impossibility, right? That's an impossibility today because we have the din, we have the law of what we call dina d'malchusa dina. The law of dina d'malchusa dina means that you have to go by the law of the land, right? And the law of the land says if you blow these places up, you're going to jail, right? If you kill innocent people, you'll go to jail, right? You may even get the death penalty. So you can't always do, what you want, even though that should be, the law, that we should have to uproot all these things, but we live in exile. We can't do whatever we want. So therefore, it's not possible. Now again, does this sound like the Hindus? Does it, or the others that will, they'll blow each other up, blow up their, each other's mosques or whatever, or ashrams or who knows what. So, it sounds pretty bad. So let's get to the heart of what idolatry is, right? Idolatry is not just bowing down to some guy on a stick or a short little fat guy or whatever. That is a Torah prohibition, right? That's the way they are served. So if anyone, Jew or non-Jew, serves the idol in the way it's supposed to be served, then that is forbidden, even if you make fun of the idol, right? Like by Baal Peor, where the mitzvah, quote unquote, to serve the idol is to defecate in front of it. It sounds kind of gross, right? But that was the mitzvah, that according to them. So if you defecate in front of it to make fun of it, so what happens? That's Torah prohibition. Why? Because that's the way you serve it. You tell me he's doing it to make fun of it, so what? What do I care if he's making fun of it? If that's the way it's served, right, it's forbidden. So, Ten Commandments speaks about idolatry and the fact you can't make idols, right? You can't worship them, right? There are different ways to worship them, etc. Even if I think in my mind, this is my God, right? A person takes out Bob, here's Bob, don't leave home without him. This is my God, the person says. That's Torah prohibition. If he thinks it, right? So many hold it's also Torah prohibition, even if he doesn't enunciate it. It's not the way you normally serve it, but you accept it upon yourself, so that's a problem, right? That is a problem. So now, you discuss the nitty-gritty about idolatry. So idolatry is bad, not just because you're bowing down to something. I mean, that's bad, right? But you're giving it power it doesn't have, right? This is really the crux of the issue. You're saying that this thing can do X, Y, and Z when it can't. So, when God gives the command, or God tells Abraham, when Abraham says, Ma'eda, he says, I want to know, who's going to inherit you. And I want to know your character traits. God says, that's an impossibility. And because you said this, we're not going to go into now, but because you said this, your progeny, your offspring are going to go to a land not theirs. They're going to suffer tremendously, but I will bring them out with an outstretched arm, give them great wealth. Even though they're going to suffer tremendously, I'll give them great wealth, and I'm going to judge their gods. Now, there's an obvious question. If God put you there, put the Jewish people there, and he says to Abraham, they're going to go there eventually, right? Years down the line, they're going to go there. Well, who put them there? God says, I did. So if you put them there, what are you judging their gods for? What's the point of judging their gods? You put them there. So the simple answer is that even though God put them there, the purpose of putting them there, one explanation, is that Moshe had to learn what it means to serve a king in this world in order to teach the Jewish people how to serve the King of Kings. 80% of the Jewish people got wiped off the face of the map, didn't come out of Egypt. Okay. But he brought out 3 million people, give or take. and they accepted the Torah on Mount Sinai. Right? The ones who were worthy got the Torah on Mount Sinai. So, in order to serve the King of Kings and to work on their belief in God, etc., God takes them out to the desert. But before that, he puts them in Egypt, goes through all these miracles, takes them out, puts them in the desert, and then what? He gives them the Torah. He brings them up to par, up to snuff in spiritual terms, in order that they should accept the Torah. Good, but he put them there. Right? He put them there in the first place. God says that, a lot of these plagues corresponded to the gods of the Egyptians. So God, in his infinite wisdom, says, not only am I going to take the Jewish people out, but I'm going to show the whole world these sticks and stones and these other things that people worship, I'm going to wipe off the face of the map. That is the first thing I'm going to do to show that I am the only one that has power. So when you look at this, again, it seems a little bit strange, how it all works, etc., why God put them there, etc., and why most of the Jews got wiped out, and then the remainder come out, etc. At the end of the day, we have to understand that belief in these powers, is futile. Right? It doesn't mean anything. So God takes the Jewish people, puts them in Egypt, and he does all these miracles to wipe out these gods, to wipe out any trace, of idolatry, to show that he runs the world. So the whole question why God does the miracles, does he do it for the sake of the Egyptians? Does he do it for the sake of the Jewish people? Does he do it for the sake of both of them? Right? There is a question. Who the miracles, who the plagues, so to speak, were, who they were done for. But make no mistake that many of these things that happened, God did in order to eradicate any form of idolatry. And that's why the last thing they have to do is they have to take a sheep, they have to kill it in front of the Egyptians, stick the blood on the lintel, on the doorpost, otherwise they don't get out of Egypt. So the Jewish people complain and say, Moshe, how can it be? How can it be that you're going to take, we're supposed to kill the sheep? We're supposed to kill the sheep right in front of the Egyptians. How in the world can we do that? The sheep is the Egyptian god. If the sheep is the Egyptian god, they're going to kill us. So Moshe says, I don't know. This is what God said. This is what we have to do. And if you don't do it, you don't get out. Right? That was the last test before the Jewish people got out. So that is pretty incredible because, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is unbelievable mesirus nefesh, unbelievable self-sacrifice that the Jewish people have to go through in order for God to take them out. So, first thing is, God has to wipe out all these other so-called gods to show he runs the world. He's in charge. These gods can't do anything. Right? They have no power. Even though Pharaoh himself and others believed there was a God who created the world, but he thought that, God disappeared. I don't know exactly where he put an omnipresent being. Maybe he's hiding behind the rock. Boom! Right? We don't know where he is. Right? He's all over. He envelops the entire world. Right? Why would he create the world and disappear? It's a good question, good philosophical question. But he believed God is so lofty, God is so up there, that what happens? He's going to give power to other forces. And these other forces are going to do whatever happens. Right? So these other forces, they'll be in charge. Comes on the Ramchal, says Ramoshe Chaim Lutzato, in his epic work, Derech Hashem, The Way of God, where he discusses spiritual forces. He discusses a lot of things there about why God created the world, purpose of man, purpose of the nations, talks about prayer, divine providence. Just a side point, I give a class on that once a week, what I've been doing for over the last year. Anyone interested, stay on to the end, discuss how you can get there, and listen in. The Ramchal says according to Kabbalah, that it's pretty clear that God has all these other forces, created these other forces, wind, fire, whatever, and these forces are powerful, but they're messengers, capital M. They are big-time messengers, and God says, when He wants them to go haywire, they will. When He doesn't want them to go haywire, they won't. They do not have independent free will, right? We've spoken about this many times. Not going to discuss it now. They can't do whatever they want. So Pharaoh made a major mistake, and others like him, that God gave these forces powers. But they're powers outside of Him. Well, that can't be. The reason that can't be is very simple, because that would mean God is limited. And as far as we know, God isn't limited. God is omnipotent. Right? He's everywhere, represents the entire world. So you can't put Him in a box, so to speak. You can't make Him finite. If you make Him finite, He's lacking. If He's lacking, can't be God. So if He doesn't have power over these other forces, can't be God, because they're independent. God forbid, which they are not. So what we have here is that idolatry has to be knocked out, in the strongest way, to show it has no power. This is what Abraham does to his father Terach. His father Terach sold idols, right? That's what he did. The Medrash says that Terach went out, so Avram took a stick and he whacked all the idols, destroyed all the idols. In the end, he put the stick in the hand of one idol. So Terach comes back and he says, Abe! He says, Abe, what happened? He says, Dad, you missed it. There was this whole big fight between all the idols, and, each one was destroying the other, and this one came out on top. Terach says, Abe, what are you talking about? These idols don't have power. They can't speak. They can't fight. So Avram says, Dad, it's a nice idea. So if that's true, then why do you worship them? That's a good question. Smart aleck kid. Let's take you to King Nimrod. Right? King Nimrod, asks him all these questions. Abraham answers them one after another and sticks them in a fiery furnace. Abraham comes out. Point is that many didn't believe these things had power. Right? Not even Terach believed they have power. But they used them as an intermediary. They used them because they had nothing else. So they gave them power, in essence, that they didn't have. But really, when Moshe comes to the first plague, by the plague of blood, where is it? God says, go to the Nile. You find Pharaoh there. And tell him to let my people go. Let my people go. Anyway, he says, let my people go. And he catches Pharaoh in the act. What is he doing? He's going to the bathroom. Why is Pharaoh going to the bathroom by the river? Because he was a god. They made him into a god. If you're a god, you cannot have to go to the bathroom. Right? So Pharaoh sneaks out. Right? When you got to go, you got to go. Moshe catches him in the act. Right? But the first thing is, what was the idol that they worshipped? Was the river. Was the Nile. They thought the Nile had real power. So the first thing that God whacks in Egypt is the Nile. Right? He knocks out the Nile. So the point over here, and we'll see actually why, before we actually get to the crux here, we have to ask the question, if according to the Torah it's so bad, and idol worship is so bad, why does God allow it? Why does He allow it to exist? How many people, thousands of people, been killed in JC's name? Not only been killed, exiled, burned, etc. So, God allows people to make mistakes. He allows people to have free will, right? When God gave us a soul, God gave us our soul, we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to make decisions. We can make the right decision, we can make the wrong decision. But He gives us the ability to reason. And therefore, since He does that, we could go in either of two directions. Either the path that God wants or the path he doesn't want. And if we go in the path he doesn't want, he's not going to stop us. If we want to go in the right path, God will help us. If he wants us to go, if we go in the wrong path, he doesn't necessarily have to stop us. He can let us destroy ourselves. So we have free will. So if a person wants to believe in things that are make believe, kind of like the tooth fairy or whatever, and they want to believe in that, okay, God says fine. You want to believe in it, believe in it. But there's going to be a serious price to pay, right? Non-Jews certainly have an obligation. 7 Noahide laws. The non-Jews, right, have to keep them. One of them is idolatry. They cannot believe in idolatry in any way, shape, or form. So, therefore, belief in idolatry for a non-Jew, right? Death penalty, like all the Noahide laws. It's a death penalty. So the crux of the issue is that by believing in these forces, if we say, God forbid, they have power in and of themselves, that means that God is limited. That means God's not all-powerful. Therefore, you take God right out of the picture. It's like, even if you want to say, well, God created the world, I believe in creation, but he disappeared. So that's taking God out of the world. That is making the world, these forces independent. And they're more important than God, which can't be, right? That's a serious mistake. That's a mistake that Pharaoh made. Others made as well. Now comes along the Torah over here. Now we understand, why idolatry is bad, right? We'll go into more detail, but I think that's pretty clear. Why idolatry is bad. Comes along the Torah over here and reiterates the fact, not only is it bad, but when you come into the land, you're going to wipe them out. All the idols. Break their pillars. Burn their sharing, right? Sounds like fun, right? Let's have a bonfire over here. Right? Hew down their carvings of their gods. Destroy the name of them out of that place. Why? Because you're in the palace of the king. You're going in the palace of the king. If you go into the palace of the king and you say, or you allow these other so-called gods to exist, not only is that disgusting in God's name, in God's eyes, I mean, that's the ultimate chutzpah. Why? Because if the Torah talks up until this point, time and time again, of the holiness of the land, and why is the land holy? Because God brought his presence down here. Right? That's why it's holy. There was a temple in Jerusalem. Right? God's holiness was there. Right? We still feel it today, even though it's a lot less than it was. Right? We don't see it direct. That's for sure. But there's still holiness in that place. That being said, you have idolatry in the land of Israel. You allow idolatry to exist. Ooh, that's bad. Right? We can't be so open-minded till our brains fall out. The Torah says time and time again how bad idolatry is. So you could ask another question, right? We're always good at answering questions with other questions. And that is that, if it's so bad, why does God allow, the Israelis to allow, why do we have to be so open-minded so we have churches in this country? Right? In the land of Israel. Isn't that bad? Isn't that idolatry? Many hold it is. Right? So if many hold it is, we should wipe them out. Wipe out all the churches. Why do we have to be so open-minded? Live and let live, people will say. They have the right to pray in their own places in the land of Israel. According to the Torah, they don't. According to the Torah, they come into the land of Israel, you wipe out all these places. You don't allow them to come back. They're supposed to be burned to the ground. Totally destroyed. So what are we doing? Putting these places up. Allowing them to say, oh, it's political pressure, it's this, it's that. Whatever the case. Right? Whatever the case is, doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves the major question. And the major question is the Torah true or is it not true? Did God give the Torah on Mount Sinai or didn't he give the Torah on Mount Sinai? If he gave the Torah on Mount Sinai, we have to hold by it. We have to hold by what the rabbis tell us. If he didn't give it, and it's all make-believe, okay, so we can do what we want. Right? So obviously, it's the former, not the latter. So we do believe the Torah is true. So there are laws we have to keep. There are things we have to do. So by giving Christians a foothold in the land, again, I don't care how long they were in charge and this, before the Jewish people came, so what? Don't you think? If the Torah says on explicit terms, you're going to get rid of all these things. And the Rambam says even in Chutz La'aretz, even outside the land, but we said before that's an impossibility. If it's so bad, why do we allow these things to exist? Why should that be? So we mentioned before, there's this question of Dina Malchusa Dina, that you have to go by the laws of the land, right? So the whole question by the land of Israel, is there such a thing as Dina Malchusa? Right? Is there this law? They have to go by the law of the land. Right? So many hold you don't. Many hold that there's only one law of the land. The one law of the land in the land of Israel is, guess what? Is Torah. Right? That is Torah. If it's Torah, that's the law of the land. It's not, it's not secularism. It's not, going after, the secular courts going after the English system, the way it was set up. That's not what it's supposed to be. That's why ultra-Orthodox Jews are against, the government and anything goes on in the land, because it's secular. It's not run according to Torah. People say it's a mitzvah to live here, fine, but we're still in exile. We're still in exile. We don't have a Torah government, not by any great shakes at all. The government's only here to uproot Torah as much as they could. It wouldn't be Orthodox Jews. This place would look no different than Hawaii. Go down to Tel Aviv, it looks no different than any other city in the world. Right? Any other secular city, except it's Hebrew and the signs and people speak Hebrew. That's about it. I mean, there are patches, of Orthodox Jews there, fine, but, it's a secular city. Most of Israel is secular, in general. So, when you look at it in those terms, we should be totally outraged. We should be, you can't call for these things to be, destroyed. You'd be put in jail. So, even if they say, well, I don't hold by the law of Dina Malchus, of the law of the land in Israel. I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. Well, guess what? If you don't, you're going to pay a serious price. Because I don't believe in the law of the land, I'm not going to pay taxes. Really? I don't believe in the law of the land, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So even if we don't hold of Dina Malchus in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel, there's still things you have to uphold. Right? You can't just do what you want. You break the law, you're in trouble. There will be people that will say, well, there is no law of the land except Torah, so I can do whatever I want. And they steal and they do other things. It's not right. Because it's still this aspect of Chilul Hashem, of making the desecration of God's name. Even if you say, I don't believe in the law, I don't believe in this, people go on and on and on. So what? Is there a police force? Are there laws that you have to abide by? Yes. If there are laws you have to abide by, you're not allowed to break them. Right? You break the law, it's a desecration of God's name. It doesn't matter what you hold by the law of the land. It's a desecration of God's name, it's forbidden. Finished. Right? That there's no negotiating. But deep down, we understand that these places should come down. Right? That is the point over here. So when the Torah says you go in there and destroy them, okay, they had to wipe out the nations there. They had to make a king. They had to destroy all these things. So that's when they were in control. When they're not in control, you can't do it. So today, we're not in control. I mean, we have the land of Israel right now, but Torah's not in control. Right? Secular courts have power. Much more power than rabbinic courts. I think they have a lot of fun uprooting rabbinic court judgments when they come in. Because they don't hold by it. They think it's all an antiquated law book, doesn't mean anything. We have the real power, because we can enforce things. No, up to 100 years ago, 150 years ago, rabbinical courts had much more power. Right? Today, they don't have so much power. It doesn't matter. If there's a dispute between two Jews, you still have to go to a rabbinic court. Unless the other Jew doesn't show up. If he doesn't show up 3 times, then the rabbinic court hears the case. And if they think the case has merit, they'll send him to secular court. Only after that. You can't go to secular court. Even if you know for a fact this guy is not going to come to rabbinic court. You still have to invite him. Right? You still have to send out a summons. If he doesn't come first time, send him another one. Doesn't come a second time, send him a third one. If it doesn't come the third time, then rabbinical court will hear your case. And they'll decide if you're allowed to go to secular court or not. But, the high court here certainly sticks its nose where it doesn't belong. In many, many ways. I think they have more power than they do. But be that as it may, with all these things going on, we're not living in a Torah society. Right? We're not living by a Torah government. That's for sure. There are, enclaves, of Torah communities. No question about that. Right? But the government itself is not part of that. Right? They certainly are not part of the overall, ideal of what Torah is. That's for sure. But at the end of the day, as the Torah says, you go into the land of Israel, you got to wipe these things out. And wiping these things out are pretty serious. That is criteria. That's what you have to do. So I think it's incredulous in many ways that even though you have a secular government, you're going to allow this garbage to be up there. Not about being politically correct. Not about what the nations are going to think. It's about whether Torah is true. If it's fantasy, do what you want. If the Torah is true, you got to get rid of all these places. Again, I'm not saying firebomb them, destroy them. You can't. What I'm saying is, though, that the fire inside a person should be disgusted by the fact that these places exist. We're not out to say everything's nice, we'll be nice to you, you be nice to us. It's not about that. It's about what's true. Right? It's about what's important. Not just about fantasy. So if we believe this to be true, this should be burning inside of us. We're not thinking of ways to destroy that, because you can't. But you have to be disgusted. You have to be abhorred by the fact that there are these things, these churches and other, idolatry, whatever they may be, in the land of Israel. And then, well, what can I do? Right? You just said you can't uproot it. Right? You'll go to jail. Can't firebomb it, right? Can't do any of these things. True. But the Rambam says it's such a serious thing. It's such a serious thing that even outside the land you should do it. But you can't. You're right. We should feel bad. We should feel sad. In a certain way. Or, really, you should be outraged. Outraged in the sense that, the Torah comes along and just gets trampled on. People don't care. Not interested in its true value, in its real meaning. And they'll say we can do whatever we want. Right? We're secular. We don't hold by the Torah. Doesn't really matter. It's all make-believe. We'll take make-believe. Fine. But realize what you're doing. Realize the spiritual pollution that it's causing to the world. That's why idolatry is so bad. Because even though God allows it to exist, not that He wants it to, but He allows it to exist because He gives us free will. Nonetheless, it takes them out of the world. It gives other powers, other things, more power than they actually have. That is the danger. And that's the same thing by a false prophet. Right? Because the Torah says, Because the Torah says that, chapter 13, there rise you among a prophet, a dreamer of dreams. It gives you a sign and wonder. A sign and wonder comes to pass, which he spoke to you, saying, let us go after other gods, which you have not known. Let us serve them. You shall not hearken to their words of the prophet, of the dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God puts you to the proof to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. Right? That is chapter 13, verse 2 to verse 4. So that's also bad. Because even if this prophet comes along and he does miracles and he says, let's go after other gods, which obviously we have not known, right? That's bad. He gets stoned to death. He gets killed. He is a danger because he's taking people away from serving God. Therefore, even if he does miracles, doesn't matter. Right? Even if he uses a certain name of God, he's able to do all kinds of things that most people can't do, or probably anybody can't do. Right? And he shows that he can do these things. That's bad. Because what does he want? He wants you to go astray after other gods. Didn't we just say how bad idolatry is? Yeah. So here the Torah comes hand in hand. And the Torah says not only is it bad when the Jews come in the land, you have to uproot these idols, etc. You have to destroy them. But even if someone came along and did miracles, he also has to be destroyed. Because what that does is it's causing other people to go astray. Because he's going to say, look at what I can do. Go after these other gods. Worship these other things. Because now I'm a prophet. Look at the miracles I can do. So what does that do, essentially? It weakens God's power. Because what you're saying is this thing has power that's independent of God. Right? He's doing all these things. You don't see God around. You don't see a voice coming out of heaven saying this is a good thing and look what he's doing and you should believe in him and all that. Obviously not. But the Torah here makes clear. It says, if they say, let us go after gods which you have not known, let's serve them, don't listen to them. Even if they do miracles. Miracles don't matter. Miracles absolutely don't matter. Doesn't matter what they do. Doesn't matter what they say. Doesn't matter how they do it. Totally irrelevant. That is a threat to the Jewish people. It's a threat because they are false gods. Now you go back in history. There have been a number of false gods. You go back 250 years ago, 300 years ago. To what happened with the Sabbatean movement with Shabtai Tzvi. And he almost destroyed Judaism. By getting people to believe in who he was, and what he did. The final straw when he converted. He was about to be killed. Converted to Islam. That was about the last straw. Then, people left him. But he made a tremendous imprint, within Judaism. And by making this tremendous imprint caused, hundreds, thousands of people to go away from, authentic Judaism and believe in him. But he was a false prophet. Caused havoc. Tremendous havoc. So, the Torah already set out, and made clear these people are a danger. So the fact that these people are a danger and what they can cause, and meaning that they can cause the Jewish people to go astray, that's it. You got to nip it in the bud. You wipe them out. It's not an act of cruelty. This is the mistake people make. Yeah, the Torah says kill this one, kill that one, kill the other one. Right? There aren't so many cases where people are going to, get killed. I mean, there are, but, there are cases where people will. But that's to show the severity. The severity of what it is. Idolatry. Murder. immorality. All these three things, they're major, major tenets that people have to stay away from, right? Murder, obviously. Immorality destroys the Jewish home, right? It thoroughly destroys the Jewish home, in the sanctity of marriage, and all that. So there are things that are crucial. And if you don't have them, or people go against, and disregard them and do what they want, society can't function. So the Torah has to come out and take a very strong stand. It's like, we hate people, we want to destroy people that commit adultery. We want to destroy people that, commit idolatry. These are severe things. Idolatry takes God out of the world. Immorality just breaks down, the moral code that the Torah set up. A person allowed to be with somebody of the opposite sex. That's being a permitted way. You can't just be with whoever you want. Can't just do whatever you want. The Torah's not a Hefker Welt. It's not ownerless. There are repercussions. A person steals, does other things. There are severe things that destroy the structure of society. So therefore, the Torah will come out very strong in certain things. Other things are forbidden, not saying that they're, that they're permissible, right? But when you look at, some other things that a person may do, it can cause the destruction of society. Causing the destruction of society, everyone will agree, is bad. Because society can't function. The purpose of secular law is to make sure that society can function. Because if you let people do whatever they want, the world will look 10 times worse than it does now. The purpose of Torah is beyond that. The purpose of Torah is to fix me, myself, to be a better Jew, to be a better non-Jew, whatever that non-Jew has to do. That is the purpose. It's not just, do this, don't do that, do this, etc. It's about perfecting myself. By secular law, it's about allowing society to function. By Torah law, that's part of it. But Torah law is about making myself, reaching potential, fixing up my bad character traits. That's what Torah is. Not just, these laws to stop society from going crazy and not being able to function. Right? It's all about character development. So, if a person commits these acts, it's bad. A person's immoral, certainly bad. A person murders, certainly bad. It's not just bad for society. It's bad because of how it affects you and what it makes you into. And the more a person does, certain things, the harder it is to get out of it, to get away from it. We always have to constantly work on ourselves, and there are many, many levels, of transgression that a person can do. For instance, I never murdered anyone, never killed anyone, so it doesn't necessarily, so murder, that means killing someone. Murder, in some ways, can mean embarrassing someone in public, right? That is similar to murder, right? It's not murder, really, but it's similar to murder. So therefore, anything similar to any of these things is also bad. Because it breaks down our values. And when our moral values are broken down, and we think we can do what we want, etc., we don't become good people. We use all kinds of excuses to steal. People do all kinds of things in business to make more money, even if it's illegal. There are plenty of issues that we fail at. That's why the rabbis came along and made a whole bunch of fences around the Torah to make sure we don't come to Torah prohibitions. But at the very least, the main three should be clear, of their severity. Because if someone acts on them, it's catastrophic. It's catastrophic in physical terms. It's catastrophic in spiritual terms. So, as we get closer to the month of Elul, right, it's all about introspection. Right, the whole month preparing for Rosh Hashanah is about what I've done during the year. What I've said, what I've not said, what I've done, what I've not done. Did I reach my potential for this year? Did I gain more than I subtracted? But see, we have to take stock of our life day in and day out. Always have to be in our guard. The evil inclination never sleeps. We always have to be on our guard. But since God is the one who manufactured this book, God knows what's best for us. Since He knows what's best for us, we have to keep it. I saw someone post recently, religion is this and it's that. It's all about do this or you're going to fry. Do that, you're going to fry. Yeah, the Torah says there's reward and punishment. But more than that, it means we're responsible for our actions. There are repercussions for what we do in a million different ways which we can't even imagine. But doesn't that give us more meaning? Doesn't that give us oomph to get up in the morning and say what I do right now matters? The blessing I make matters? How I make it, how I say it, what I do? It all matters. And because it all matters, it means I have responsibility. And responsibility means I can do the right thing or I can do the wrong thing. But there are a lot of different levels in between. The bottom line, when we prepare for Rosh Hashanah, and we come into Rosh Hashanah, God wants one thing. He wants to see a person wants to change. We get there, great. Even if we don't get there, but we try. God wants to see that we try. He wants to see that we keep the Torah to the highest level we can. Doesn't matter where we are. We go on vacation, you still have to pray, right? You still have to make blessings. There are plenty of things you have to do, even if you're not in the vicinity of your own home or community. So, we have to look at what we do really matters. And if we really understood how the world works, and what goes on, and how our actions matter, we probably never get out of bed. But that's the awesome responsibility man has, and that's the potential we have the ability to reach. I want to remind people, I made a course called Discover Your Biblical Path. Anyone coming out of idolatry, they can, make a choice whether they want to be a Noahide or they want to be a Jew. What it means to be a Jew, oral tradition, the holidays. I go through what it means to be a Noahide, what they have to keep, don't have to keep, how to find a rabbi, how to find a community, how it affects their family, whether a convert or a Noahide. I also have 7 interviews of people who converted to Judaism or in the process of conversion to Judaism, as well as Noahides. So that's called Discover Your Biblical Path. You can find that in my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com. I also give a class in Derech Hashem once a week in the Way of God. I mentioned that before, by Ramosha Chaim Lutzato. Speaks about why God created the world, purpose of man, purpose of the nation, spiritual forces, divine providence. When I was speaking about prayer, and we're going to start speaking about the order of prayer, etc., how it works. That's every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. Every other Wednesday night, 8 p.m., TanakTalk.com, TanakTalk.com, or Tanakh Talk on YouTube. I do a video on controversial issues. That's every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time. And Tuesday and Thursday, I have a question and answer session. That is Tuesday, 10 a.m. New York time. Thursday, 2 p.m. tonight, or this afternoon, 2 p.m. New York time. And I give conversion classes and Noahide classes. Again, you can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion and Judaism, or Beyond Noahides. Take a look at my blog, orthodoxconversion.com. Or anyone wants to contact me, you can send me an email at rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.